in this episode. There is this feeling inside of our hearts that tell us,
not right now, maybe later, maybe a cup of tea, maybe,
and you end up doing other stuff, and then it becomes too late. And then the second day you feel guilty. Why was that mistake such a big deal? 7 years old. There is this very, very beautiful woman who was approaching. I felt insecurity. I felt fear. I'm not worthy enough to... You will learn so much about yourself by practicing this game. So let me explain. Highland Visions. Welcome back to Consistency Podcast. I am here to create consistency. And this comes after years of not being able to achieve the dreams that I've always wanted to accomplish, so to speak. After many years of feeling as if I can never focus and I can never achieve what I aspire, what I dream, I decided that I had enough of a life where what I love stays in the background and what I despise takes the foreground. Today is quite difficult because I left this consistency episode as the last thing to do before I go to sleep, and it's already quite late. But if I didn't show up today, I would feel so disappointed tomorrow. When you say something that you want to do and you promise to yourself that you're going to do it, and then you don't do it just because you distracted yourself to the point where it's too late and you're too tired to accomplish what you wanted to accomplish. And this is the main trap that usually comes in our path when we want to achieve something for the first time. Maybe this is not for everyone, but for a lot of us who have big dreams and big aspirations, they end up not doing them. And yes, sure, there is fear of failure, there is fear of not being good enough, there is a fear of the unknown in general. But I think that beyond fear is an endless self-sabotage, because this is our way of confirming the subconscious story that runs in our lives, such as we are not worthy, or this is our level of how much we deserve. When we create a story that becomes a belief in our subconscious, such as I will never make it, I will never be successful, I'm not good enough, who am I to think that I can compete with the rest of the world, then what will happen is on a conscious level, we still feel like we want to do it. But then, we have this plan, okay, from now on, I'm going to do this every day. And then when we are about to do it, we find excuses why we can't, or we feel too tired. The moment doesn't feel right. This is quite typical, that it never feels like the right time. There is this feeling inside of our hearts that tell us,
not right now, maybe later, maybe a cup of tea, maybe,
And you end up doing other stuff, and then it becomes too late. And then the second day you feel guilty. And it's interesting how this mechanism works, and it's so reliable and so consistent, basically. That's the interesting thing, that you are trying to develop consistency, but you are fighting against a consistent pattern. So in order to create consistency, you have to defeat consistency. It's like this sort of mythical fight that you have, and then if you win, if you kill the dragon, if you slay the dragon with I don't know how many heads, then you will be the dragon. You will be the ruler of your kingdom. Yes, today was an interesting day because I feel like I finished the song that I've been working on for so many months now. And I felt truly satisfied. With 2 or 3 exceptions, there were some parts in the songs that I still felt like they needed to be edited. And interestingly, I end up doing a tweak there, and then I had another idea, and here I am creating again like huge edits in the song, and now the song sounds completely different. And I am at that stage where I feel that if I don't finish this song soon, it's gonna it's gonna do something to me. It's gonna trigger something very, very deep. There is something very interesting that there is a particular drop or a transition, a bridge to something very, high energy, and somehow I can never seem to get that high energy from that bridge, because I remember it sounded so good maybe a couple of weeks ago, but then the song was completely different, and the whole bass line and the drums were different at that stage, and they don't fit in the song anymore. So now everything is great except that particular thing, and I've been struggling, and I've been adding 7-8 layers of high energy drums, and it still doesn't work. It's almost as if like no matter how many layers I put, it's just becoming a mess. So this is my struggle with making music at the moment. It's just I feel stuck in creating one song. And then I came up with this idea of, what if I just remove everything, like all those layers of background voices and echoes and reverbs and all those things, and I simplify the song, and it sounds already so much better. I felt embarrassed because when you're in school and you're learning how to write, I don't know about you, but I remember one episode when my homework was to write letter J for, 40, 50 times. I can't remember how many times. And I remember that the way I was looking at my notebook, to me that notebook was sacred somehow. Ever since I was in the first grade, there was this perfectionism inside of me. I didn't want to make any mistakes, so I was very careful to make that letter J perfect 40 or 50 times. And I remember at some point that I made a mistake. And the way you would correct a mistake, you would use some form of razor, like a metal razor that you use for shaving, and you'd scrap, the pen mark on the paper until it's, it's gone. And you almost cannot notice it, like it's that way of erasing that removes the ink, but it's sort of that you don't see it anymore. But somehow I made a mistake again in the same place, and this time I could have not used the eraser again because the paper was already sensitive. It was already too scrapped. So what I ended up doing was I made that line that wasn't perfectly straight. I used a second line that would make it bigger, basically. So to explain it better, the line wasn't perfectly straight, so I made a bigger line, like a thicker line, so that it becomes straight. What it ended up looking like was like a very, very fat J, but it looks straight, however, it was really fat. And then I realized that at the bottom, because it was so fat, it wasn't balanced anymore, so I had to make that curve of the J as fat as the rest of the body. And I couldn't do it perfectly, so it became like a hot mess. So I added another layer to that J, So I made it even fatter so that I compensate on the initial mistake. I just made the letter J bigger and bigger and bigger because it wasn't straight initially. So if you make it bigger, you can make it straighter somehow. But after a while, I was so pissed at that letter. I was starting to cry, and I remember I was so pissed that I just scribbled the whole page. And that was, I don't know, I have this memory that it was almost as if it felt so wrong. I felt so bad for making that mistake, as if the stakes were so high. I really want to understand what happened there. Where was that perfectionism coming from, and why was that mistake such a big deal? I mean, I was 7 years old. How come this making a perfect letter J means so much for a 7 years old? So yeah, going back the memory line, now I feel with this song that I can't get it right, so I make it bigger and bigger and bigger. I add more sounds, just to compensate and just hide my insecurities and my lack of perfection, so to speak. And then I said to myself, okay, I understand what's happening here, so I'm just going to create, I have nothing to lose, because in the digital world you can always come back to the initial project. So I decided to remove many layers of sounds, but I still couldn't remove a lot, but still, it was something. Yeah, so now the song sounds a little bit cleaner. I wish I could remove even more. So I don't know if you can relate to any of this. I guess the lesson here is to let go of perfectionism. Let go of the idea that something has to be perfect, and just move to a new project before it gets to the point where you become obsessed with it. At least in music making, I could have made maybe 10 different songs by now if I was working more efficiently. This morning I woke up with this pain, and it felt as if somebody broke my rib. And I couldn't sleep properly because my neck bothered me. I had all sorts of dreams, and I woke up tired, and then I worked at this song and went for a beautiful walk on my own in Carlisle in UK, since I'm visiting this place, and I wasn't impressed at all. I somehow don't resonate with this place. It feels, there is beauty. There is definitely beauty in it, but it somehow reminds me of some industrial 1800s place. That was the vibe that I got from it. Almost like a rural town. And as I was walking on the streets of Carlisle, I was passing by all sorts of people, and there were some particularly beautiful women that I was passing by, and I remember with one of them I was able to maintain a long eye contact, and it felt really good. And that was particularly significant because I've been struggling with self-confidence and with a sense of well-being, in the sense of worth and a sense of well-being in general after my breakup that happened some months ago. And obviously there are ups and downs in this process of gaining my strength back. But today I realized something very, very important, that it's not about the other people that I'm afraid of rejection. I'm actually rejecting myself. As I was passing next to this woman, I felt good inside of myself. I felt in a good mood because I felt like the song sounded great and that I finally finished it. And I felt like I have accomplished something. So I had this sort of self-confidence based on something I've done. And I realized if I feel good inside, then the whole world will reflect that back to me. Because I've been walking on the streets of many other cities, and I felt that I could never have a long eye contact with anybody. I felt, putting my eyesight away whenever I would encounter somebody's eyes. And this is very, very unlike me, because I'm the kind of person who always likes to look in people's eyes, especially to strangers. Whenever I go for a walk in a city, my main game that I play is connecting to people by looking into their eyes and smiling and bringing light into people's lives, sending them good mood and love. And I highly recommend this game because you will learn so much about yourself by practicing this game. So let me explain. You walk on the street and without exception, unless of course you have 7 people walking in a straight line, you will look into every person that passes next to you. And if the person looks back at you, you don't break the eye contact and you smile. And of course, at some point you'll have to break it because you'll pass the person. But the idea is to play this game with every human that you encounter. And you will have all sorts of experiences. You will have people who will not even look at you. You will have people who will avoid your look, and you can see that they're socially awkward. You will encounter people who look at you and they will smile too. There's going to be a big spectrum of experiences. And today I could do that with this woman, but then later on during the day, when my mood started to shift a little bit, maybe because I felt like I'm not in the right city, there is this very, very beautiful woman who was coming in my direction, and I felt insecurity, I felt fear. I'm not worthy enough to look into her eyes. I still dared to look at her, but the moment she looked at me, I took my eyesight away and I felt so shy, so afraid, so closed. And imagine when you can't look into somebody's eyes because you don't feel worthy of their beauty. Imagine how that made me feel inside. So that was a defining moment of today. And what I realized actually was people never reject me. I reject myself. And in other words, I felt that I was looking at myself from the other side of the pavement, and I was rejecting myself because this person was just a mere representation of something that I feel I'm not worthy for. So she was the kind of woman I don't feel worthy of, and she was coming, and I had to face that unworthiness just to realize that actually I created the whole scenario, I created the whole, rejection idea. And this comes from this very strange, very unhealthy preconceived idea that every human that passes me should give me their full attention and show me that they love me. And if they don't do that, it means that I'm not good enough. So, yeah, this actually is very important to mention because I realized that in every human interaction, I'm pretty much the same. I'm expecting the other person to give me their undivided attention, and if they don't, I take it personal. Just think about a situation when you are saying something and the other person was just not looking at you anymore and they were checking their phone. That sort of thing can put you off balance a little bit if you're not, of course, strong in yourself, if you're not confident and if you don't feel enough. So I think this is important to share, and I really hope that you understand the implications of what I've just told you. And until we do the work, until we accept ourselves for who we are exactly, and not only accept, but love, cherish this body that we inhabit, until we love ourselves so much that we don't feel like we need anybody to give us validation anymore, we're constantly going to attract people who are going to reject us, apparently. And if you feel like you've been rejected or abandoned or disrespected or, not listened to in your life, it's probably you doing that to yourself. What part of yourself you reject? I can see it inside of me. I know it's true for me. And I know that the moment when I started to accept myself for who I am, no matter what other people say, no matter how other people see me, that's when I find true liberation. I can observe how my behavior and my feelings and my perception of myself changes based on who passes next to me. And that's very, very important. A lot of us may feel that we don't care about what other people say, but observe how you talk and how you change when a person comes in your space, when a person passes next to you, when a person looks at you, when a person speaks to you. I'm gonna end this episode here. I hope you found it useful. I wish you beautiful dreams if you're going to bed. And if you're not, then I wish you a beautiful rest of your day. And I hope you find love and wonder and just a sense of being grateful for being alive. Sending you much love. Talk to you later.